Hello, good evening. So, recently I have made a post in Facebook na I would be talking about certain things, but I needed some ideas on what to talk about. And, a friend of mine, or a Facebook friend of mine, went on ahead and said I should talk about all these things and all those things. And one of which was the Philippine elections, particularly the presidential aspirants of the Philippine election, upcoming Philippine election. And I was prompted to make this video because earlier today, I was listening to, just the regular ambience of my house when I suddenly heard a bagong silang, a bagong lipunan song playing with people cheering, and it was like motorcade. And so it made me think na now's the time for me to actually talk about this stuff. I have been trying to talk about this stuff for quite some time, but it always ended up in me going haywire. It would always end up in me missing the point of the video, but sige lang. Anyway, so presidential aspirants. There are many Filipino presidential aspirants that we have right now, but I will be objective with them all. See, there are many things that could be said about each and every one, but I would rather just get to the point and be as objective as possible. Okay, as possible. Okay, it's not a guarantee, but if I will, then I will. Sige lang. So, presidential aspirants of the Philippine election. So, right now, I can see 4 possible people who are, who have a sort of capability to become the president of the Philippines. And that's Leni Robredo, Bongbong Marcos, Isco Moreno, and Ping Lacson. Now, I'm pretty sure na there might be other people who would be pitching in, but these 4 people are by far the most valid for me. Now, why would I say this one particular aspirant is valid despite all the family history? Because I want to be objective in this video, okay? So, sige lang. So, before I can tell you who I'm gonna be choosing and who I would be supporting, we must first go and define what a president is. Okay, now there are many definitions of a president, but for me, the president is the representative of the country. It's the elected official who is meant to represent the country, meant to lead the country in its national affairs, and is meant to be the person we would all look up to, in a sense na they would embody what it is to be a good leader. However, it has become more and more obvious to us that the world does not exactly work that way. The one who wins as president is not exactly the one who is the most charming, and it's not exactly the one who's the most valid. It's not exactly the one who's the most capable of leading, and it's not exactly the one who's the most capable of doing things properly, because most of the time the person who actually wins is the one who's more popular. So, ayun. When it comes to me, I vote not on the popularity, but rather on what they can do. What they can do. See, I'm not the type of person who gets swayed because of people saying, oh, see this person, this candidate is good, therefore vote for him, or vote for her, or vote for them, something like that. I don't do that. So, ayan. The things that I'm looking for in a president, right now, there are 3 things. It might be added later, pero sige lang. 3 things. The first one is they're capable of leadership, or they've proven themselves as leaders before. Second is someone who is actually beloved by the people, or someone who actually loves the people, who's actually doing things for public service. And number 3, someone who is capable of dealing with the national matters that we have on hand. national matters being the rising debt, the coronavirus outbreak, and the military situation over at Spratly Islands. So, ayun. So, for the first one, I think I said someone who has proven themselves in leadership. Leni, Isco, and Bongbong, and Ping Lacson have sort of proven themselves already in terms of leadership. So si Leni, she's proven herself to be a good vice president, or a vice president who actually did some good during her time. Si Bongbong Marcos, he used to be a governor of a province in Luzon, if I'm not mistaken. And he has also proven himself to be capable of rallying a crowd in a sense. And then we have Isco Moreno, who is the mayor of Manila. He has transformed, or more likely made Manila into a more palatable city from what used to be a very crowded and very off-putting city to something that's actually representative of a country. And si Ping Lacson, he used to be a leader of the military, which is something that we quite need right now, especially with the Philippines situation over at Spratly Islands. So ayun. So second, someone who actually wants to do public service. So with that, I am very very confident these two people are, concerned for public service. Number one is si Leni Robredo, and the other one is Isco Moreno. So, why do I say these two? Because first of all, kay Leni, she is someone who actually tried to do her best, during the pandemic response during her time as vice president during 2020 and early 2021. She would use her limited budget. She would maximize it to bring benefit to the people, to bring shuttles for the frontliners, and lugaw as well. And then si Isco Moreno, the dude has been working as a mayor. He has been in the politics of Manila, and he has been trying to deal with a lot of things in Manila. And you could see na he actually means business by the way he treats his people. However, recent news has stated na, or recent developments rather, not news, developments, have been stating that maybe Isco has an ulterior motive. Maybe he's just in it for the power. But seeing how he dealt with Manila, it makes me sort of comfortable to say na he's someone who's into public service. So, next one is si Bongbong Marcos and si Ping Lacson. See, the only actual reason why I did not include them in the two is that Bongbong Marcos, although he is someone who loves the Filipino people, he says it in the way na literally all other politicians say it. They just say it, but their actual love for public service has yet to be seen. See, so it could also be said na si Bongbong Marcos is mostly only being praised because of his father's achievements and not his own. I mean, any governor of a province could run for president. Any politician who has made a lot of projects could run for president. But what puts him in a special pedestal? What makes him stand out? Well, it's his father. It's Ferdinand Marcos Sr., the man who was able to build a lot of things during his 21 years of service, rather, and stuff like that, and has, sort of put the Philippines in a golden age, as his supporters would say, even though it's not. So, ayun. Then lastly is si Ping Lacson. See, I have yet to actually hear of Ping Lacson in the mainstream media. I have yet to hear of his achievements in leadership and in public service, because as far as I know, forgive me if I'm wrong, he works as a military man, and I'm not too sure if he's a military man or a policeman, or a police officer rather. So, yun. Mainly due to the lack of knowledge on him, I can't really say anything about him. So I can only be confident with Leni and Isco. The third is someone who's actually capable of dealing with national matters. National matters being the rising debt, the COVID response, and the militarization of the West Philippine Sea. So yun. So first one, rising debt. It is no secret na the Philippines is experiencing a very, very sudden and a very, very drastic rise in Philippine debt. So the last time I checked, 11 trillion pesos na daw yung debt natin. And that's a terrible, terrible thing because it would mean our government would have to, would have to make more money in order to pay that debt off, in order to stabilize the economy. However, it can't exactly be erased in one presidential term, but it can be remedied. So, yung second is yung COVID response. See, more than ever, what we Filipinos need is effective COVID response. And while right now, a lot of people have been vaccinated, it's still clearly not enough, seeing how a lot of people are still, passing away due to COVID. A lot of people are still being affected negatively by COVID. And it has become a reality of our life now. We need a strong leader, or we need good policies, not just strongly, but good policies as well, in order to remedy, or in order to at least lessen the negative effects of the pandemic. And the third one, and the last one, is military presence and military prowess in the West Philippine Sea. So I say West Philippine Sea because it's currently the most prominent thing in terms of the military sphere for me. So a big military power like China is, flexing its muscles and trying to, conquer some of our land, some of our islands over at West Philippine Sea. And, it won't take a lot to see that they're trying to encroach. And in the event of a war, in the event of a, let's say, a regional skirmish, regional war, China could very well invade the Philippines through their connection with Spratly Island. If not, then maybe they could be, utilizing other means. Pero we can't just go around, accusing people. So right now, since we only have the West Philippine Sea issue to show for, let's just use that. So ayan. So with those three, Leni can only do around two, or at least I'm confident that Leni can actually do two of those, which is COVID response and the rising debt. Si Bongbong Marcos, I think if he's gonna follow in the footsteps of his father, it's gonna be military, and military is the only thing that I can really see in him, unfortunately, right now. I'm not too sure about the rising debt. Maybe if the thing that old people would say na parang, oh, well, if a Marcos were to be put in office, they could use their gold reserves to pay the debt. Maybe that could happen, but we all know that's not gonna happen. There's not a chance in the world that's gonna happen, because even if a politician has enough money to pay off the debt, it's their money. They won't pay it, because why should they? If they won't be elected, then why should they? Stuff like that. So yeah, kay Bongbong Marcos, military lang nakikita ko sa kanya. I have yet to actually be impacted by his policies regarding the COVID response and the rising debt, on how he aims to deal with that. Okay, so si Isco Moreno, I can see kind of like Leni. He has the possibility of becoming a person who could mitigate the rising debt, and is also someone who could do well with the COVID response. However, I'm not too sure. Okay, I'm not too sure talaga if he can pull through with that promise once he becomes president, because there's gonna be actual busy things that going on in this country na he'll have to deal with, and he can't exactly pour all of his efforts into that and that alone. So sige lang, we have yet to see that. Then lastly, kay Ping Lacson, definitely military, and I have yet to see him do the other two. So essentially right now, I can confidently say na I will probably be supporting, or no, not probably supporting two. I would be on the fence of choosing between these two people, si Isco Moreno and si Leni Robredo. See, so, ayun. So why not Bongbong Marcos? Bongbong Marcos is the son of Ferdinand Edwin Marcos Sr. So why won't you vote for him? Don't you know his father is good? Don't you know his father did all these things? Don't you know that the sins of the father cannot be taken by the son? Yes, those may be true, but the thing is, we're voting for Bongbong. We're not voting for Marcos. So even if madaming accomplishments nagawa si FM Senior, even if marami siyang nagawang mga great things, even if naging top-notch siya sa board, that's him. That's the father. That's not the son. Okay? You have to understand that just because your father is a genius, the son, or you, the son, is not necessarily just like your father. Okay? You have to understand that. A lot of people, they go for Bongbong not because of Bongbong himself, but because of the memory or the painted legacy of his father, which is a masaganang Pilipinas, bagong lipunan, and stuff like that. And I'll be honest, I used to want to support him. I used to be supportive of the Marcos family. Mainly because I believed na, the Marcoses could actually lead the Filipino people towards greatness, because I agree with with the ideals of the Bagong Lipunan. See, so Bagong Lipunan, from what I can remember, essentially says na they're gonna cut down on corruption, they're gonna cut down on unnecessary military spending, and they're gonna sort of stop, or they're gonna secure the safety of all Filipinos. Then they're gonna prioritize the Filipinos above all other people and stuff like that. So those ideals were the ideals that I sort of liked, and therefore, even though a lot of academic people would say, no, don't vote for the Marcoses, don't go for the Marcoses, because the Marcoses are stinky, because the Marcoses have a bad reputation with human rights, don't do this, don't do that. I still opted to vote for them, or at least support them rather, not vote them because I couldn't vote yet. So I opted to support them mainly because of that idea, the idea of a new society of the Philippines, a new society where the Philippines could be raised from the ground, become a superpower once more. Even though we never were a superpower, we were just strong. Okay, we were just, if we were to compare ourselves as men to if we were to compare the Philippines as men, the Philippines was rather like a strong uncle. Okay, he's strong, but there are other people who are stronger than him, most definitely. So, ayun. So, kay Bongbong, I was kind of excited when I heard na parang sinabi na parang maging president daw siya. Like, maging president as aspirant rather. He's gonna run for president. Because I was like, oh yes, the Filipino people are gonna wake up and actually move on from the terrors of martial law. Ganyan. And, the usual na, you see, it's because of these people who can't move on, it's because of these people. Total 70,000 people lang naman yung na-affect. I-compare mo sa Philippines ngayon na 100 million. What's 70,000 to 100 million? Why should we care for the rights of those 70,000 people if it's gonna be for the benefit of the 100 million people? You see that? That was the mindset that I had. And if that's the type of mindset people have as well, then the Philippines will be severely, severely, severely fucked up. Okay? The mere fact na you're happy to overlook the rights of people in order to bring your nation to prosperity is a big reason why or is a big indicator na your idea, okay, the same idea that I had, is not good. Okay? It's really, really not good if you're gonna say, okay lang yan, 70,000 people lang naman yung pinatay. And, not pinatay, 70,000 people lang naman yung na-victimized during Marcos's time. And total, lahat naman sila mga communist, mga people who oppose the government. So, they deserve the punishment. They deserve everything that they did. Mga ganon. Those are the things I used to believe in. But after reading a lot of things, after seeing the humanitarian crisis around the world, after reading upon the things that were committed during the Marcos's time, and also interjecting my image into what's actually gonna happen if that stuff actually pulls through, then that scared me, kasi kind of like kind of like how Mussolini rose to power. Parang his sort of ideology was dangerous, but the people were like, sige lang, it's not gonna affect me. It's just gonna affect the bad people. Ayun, so bad people number 1 got removed. It's gonna be just the bad people. Bad people number 2 got removed. It's just the bad people naman. Bad people number 3 got removed. And then ikaw na lang yung natira. Turns out, you became a bad people for them too, and therefore, also ikaw rin, pati ikaw, na-affect na rin ng policies niya. And if that's gonna happen to us Filipinos, if we can't say things against the government in hopes of bettering the government itself, then unfortunately, walang greatness makamit ng Pilipinas. Okay? Even if sabihin natin it's true na 70,000 people is minuscule, yung 70,000 people who went against the government is minuscule compared to 100 million right now and 50 million at that time. The mere fact na a single person was killed just because they said no to the government is already very, very bad. Okay? And morally, I cannot stand by that. I cannot just say, move on na tayo doon if justice has not been served yet. Okay? And one of the biggest things as to why I took away or pulled back my support to the Marcoses was that they refused to acknowledge na bad things happened. They refused to acknowledge na those things happened. Even if sabihin natin na it was a very, very turbulent time. And so, ang dami-dami ng mga people na naapektuhan. Ang dami-dami ng mga people na being tortured because of the communists and the government alike. The mere fact na innocent people who just did not like the Philippine government. The mere fact that there were people who said, I don't like this from happening. The mere fact na the people who just wanted a brighter Philippines, the people who just wanted to be good Filipinos were murdered. Or not murdered by Ferdinand Marcos himself, but rather, the government gave the military the ability to do that. The government gave the military the means of doing it. The mere fact na nangyari yun is already a very big sin, essentially. So, it's not just something you can say na move on ka na daw. Move on ka. Because I'm pretty sure even if may masamang nangyari sa buhay niyo, you wouldn't stop until you achieve justice. And that is what I see na nangyayari sa Philippines ngayon, is that Filipinos are more than willing, or a lot of Filipinos are more than unwilling to overlook the pain and the agony that the unfortunate Filipinos whose family members were murdered would feel. Ganun, essentially. And not to mention the debt crisis, okay? ang taas-taas ng debt tong martial law. Okay? Back then, I was like, Philippines, $1, stuff like that. So, ayun. I already said why I no longer voted for the Marcoses, but, going with the narrative that the sins of the father cannot be done by the son, so we should try to see Bongbong Marcos as a politician without the lens of his father. And unfortunately, if I were to do that, I can't really see anything, to be honest. Wala akong makitang anything special kay Bongbong aside from the fact na he's his father's son. Yun lang talaga. Unfortunately, okay? As much as I like the idea of a presidential child taking up his father's office and finishing what he had started, or rather finishing what it was that he wanted to do, which was accordingly to make a good Philippines. As much as I like that idea, Bongbong just isn't remarkable, unfortunately. I'm pretty sure he's more remarkable than me, okay? He's a politician who actually went to law school. Pero when it comes to being a president of the country, there are more people who are actually more fit for the role, and those people unfortunately may not be running. Pero we have Leni naman din, and we have Isco Moreno. So si Leni, despite her being someone who went against the Philippine not Philippine government, against the Philippine presidency Duterte, despite her going against him, I cannot lie when I tell you na I am impressed by her capabilities of doing things with a very small budget, okay? With a very small budget. Now, one big thing about Leni, unfortunately, is that I don't think she's gonna win. Because Philippine elections are not determined by, like what I said earlier, they are not determined by how good of a president you can be, but rather how popular you are. Okay? And unfortunately, Leni is not as popular. Okay? Let's be honest here, she's not that popular. A lot of people in your social media circles may be supporting Leni and bashing Bongbong Marcos. But, we all know na bubble lang yan. We all know na hanggang bubble lang si Leni, unfortunately. And I think that a lot of it has to do with the fact na yung supporters niya, the people who she's supposed to represent, are unpleasant to be with. They're unpleasant to be with. Kasi, even if sabihin natin, what you're doing is right, what you're standing up for is right, what you're trying to say is right, the way you say it matters, okay? The way in which you tell your truth, the way in which you speak your truth, matters greatly, especially when it comes to politics, okay? Now, si Bongbong Marcos, he is an okay politician with some okay projects. However, because he's able to rile up the people, because he's able to ride on his father's legacy, the people are in turn supportive of him as well. See? So even if sabihin natin their beliefs are terrible, especially sa martial law na parang move on ka na daw, that happened 40 years ago. Even though that belief is terrible, the way they say it is not exactly hostile towards the person who has no affiliation yet. Okay? It's not exactly hostile, which is actually the reason why I wanted to support him in the first place, because the people he wanted to represent were the people who were like, yeah, let's go for the Philippines. Yung kay Leni, even if what she stands for is the right thing, in my opinion, yung supporters niya, mga, if you don't like Leni, unfriend me right now, okay? Unfriend me, because we're over, we're done. Those people, mga people who keep on saying, well, see, the reason why I broke up with my boyfriend is because he does not vote for the things that I bought. I don't like people like you who think differently from me, stuff like that. And although I'm pretty sure mas marami yung mga supporters ni Leni na di ganun, unfortunately, the vocal ones, the ones who are leading the charge, are those people, yung mga elitista. Okay? I don't like elitists. I don't like people who are telling you who to vote, otherwise you'd be cancelled, otherwise you'd be unfriended, otherwise you'd be not spoken to during crucial times, mga ganon. See, even if correct yung message nyo, even if correct yung sinasabi nyong stuff, if you're gonna be an elitist about it, unfortunately, no one's gonna want to be your supportive friend. No one's gonna want to support the things you support because you're, for the lack of a better term, unpleasant. Okay? Unpleasant yung mga supporters ni Leni, unfortunately. As good as her policies may be, as good as the things she does may be, yung mga supporters niya, yung mga elitista, nagsasabi, sige na, unfriend niya ako, yung uncle ko, putang niya talaga yung siya, di nag-work kay Leni, kay Marcos, kay Pacquiao, tabang-vote yala! Stuff like that. That was also one of the main reasons as to why I wanted to support the Marcoses, okay? Yung pagiging unpleasant nito, okay? And it took me quite a while to actually see the points of Leni objectively because of the supporters who kept on riling them up. Because of the supporters who were annoying as fuck, trying to tell you na ika-cancel ka nila, na i-unfriend ka nila, na, oops, Marcos supporter, oops, Pacquiao supporter, oops, supporter ng Dicos yung support, oops, mga bobo yan sila, don't say that, masama yan, stuff like that. Nah, I really don't like those people. And it took me quite a while to see her side as what it is, a good side, mainly because I wanted to spite these people, okay? I am aware na the type of behavior in which you're gonna go for something bad in order to spite something you deem as bad is bad in itself. However, you have to understand na, it feels kinda good. I don't like these Leni supporters, and it makes them angry, it makes them cry if I say I support Marcos, I support anyone who isn't Leni, ganyan. And it feels good to essentially see them cry, be angry, and say, unfriend na tayo, unfriend me, you idiot! Na, ganun. Mainly because, it's that sense of justice being played. Even though you yourself are unjust, mas unjust sila in your perspective, therefore whatever hurts them is a good thing for you. Stuff like that. While I have already changed my perspective, while I've changed sides already, it has to be noted na mas marami pa ring people na ganon. So, I believe na unless the supporters ni Leni and ng other good candidates, unless yung supporters ni Leni are gonna be pleasant to be around, okay? Unless the front charging people are gonna be people who you could agree with peacefully, and unless they're the ones who are not dehumanizing the other side, unless pag di natin yun makamit, okay? Pag di natin yun ma-achieve, yung pagiging good Samaritans kunuhay, and mga stuff like that kay Leni, if we can't achieve that image for Leni, then unfortunately she won't win, okay? Unfortunately, she won't win. So, ayun. Yan lang naman. It's a very, very, very messy video. 34 minutes. And, yeah. Yun na. Those were my thoughts on the Philippine politicians. Si Isco Moreno, he's great. Si Ping Lacson, he's also great. But, ganun na nga. I choose Leni pa rin. And kay Bongbong, good luck pa lang sa'yo, men. Ganyan. Sige. Okay, goodbye.